South you go.
Yep, I do.
Good. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, for our listeners, who are you, good sir?
My name's Keith Forant.
Very good. Yes, it is.
I'm I'm a martial artist. I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, fought MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I own a school called Buffalo United Martial Arts. We train fighters now, train non-fighters, and I'm also a promoter of MMA and Muay Thai events.
That is awesome. What inspired you to start your journey in martial arts?
Well, I have a twin brother, and we would watch the UFC events, and I thought I was a tough guy, so I was like, I could do that. I wanted to do it, and so I like it was on my bucket list. I gotta go in, and I wanted to fight at least one time. And I started training, and I quickly realized I had no idea how to fight. and but that just made me want to do it even more. So I learned, and the ironic thing is, I live in Buffalo, New York. My twin brother he currently is and was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we would talk about it on the phone. And we started around the same time without really telling each other. And then once we started training a little bit, then we said, oh, I started training because we wanted to try to get a jump on one another. But so we started training. Him down in North Carolina, me up in Buffalo, and but like I said, quickly realized I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I would be able to I thought I was just going to be good at fighting, like most people that don't
Yeah.
know how to fight. And but I found out I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know what I was doing, so I kept on training, and that began my journey.
Fantastic. Who was your first instructor?
My first instructor, first started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu under Chuck Anzalone. And then shortly after that, I started training Muay Thai under Crew Mark Shaw.
Oh, very good. Very good. Good people. That's fantastic. So you had a very good beginning.
Yeah, yeah, solid instructors, and very good instruction early on in my journey.
Awesome. Are there any fighters that inspire your personal fighting style that you try to emulate or
Um, everybody gets influenced by fighters, different styles. I don't know if there's a single person that I like to emulate. I always gravitated towards fighters who were very good at, like, for as far as MMA fighters go, fighters that had really good striking, that also had grappling ability. Um, that were great at jiu-jitsu. So one of the fighters I liked early on in his career, and I still follow, is Charles Oliveira. I was always a fan of his, even early on in his career. And another fighter I really liked to watch was Edson Barboza.
okay. Fantastic. That's some good inspiration. What was so what got you into the fight side of it? So you had you had great trainers, they moved you forward on your journey. What inspired you to step into the ring? And from that point
Um,
forward.
like I said, it was something I always wanted to do. I don't even know why, to be honest. Maybe just to prove to myself that I could do it. Um, And so it was like my goal. Even the first day I stepped into the gym, the goal was to take a fight eventually.
Okay.
And so it was always kind of like the goal. And then, like I said, when I first started training, I found out really quickly that I wasn't really good at it at first. And I trained for about a year before I took my first Muay Thai fight. And then I fought Muay Thai fight, and I would do grappling tournaments. And then I trained for about another year before I started fighting MMA.
Awesome. Good stuff. What was your most difficult fight camp? Preparing for fights, because a lot of people talk about their fights, but they neglect to talk about how difficult a fight camp can be.
Yeah, they can be. So when I first started fighting, I was already married and had two kids at the time. And then as my journey went on, I had two more kids during the whole process. So one of the hardest fight camp I had was for I think my fifth professional fight. I was fighting down in Maverick, PA against what's his Francis Marshall. He fights in the UFC now. It was probably the most challenging fight camp I had. The going into the during the camp, I had a lot of personal issues I was dealing with that kind of made it challenging to go and train on a regular basis and with the right mindset.
Yeah.
And so it was that was the most challenging one was that fight camp and that fight in particular as well. I just didn't feel like myself for the fight. It's really hard to go into and train on a regular basis and go through the mental process and the physical process when you're not really there mentally, when you have other personal issues going on. A lot of people don't really understand how challenging it is to just do it when everything's perfect, let
Yeah.
alone when things are, not, when the road's rocky.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then, as a fighter, how would you start your day then? And then, would you train more in the morning or more in the evening? What became your go to?
Well, I started some point during the process. I started working at UPS, so I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work every day, and I would go to work for about anywhere between 4 to 6 hours, and then I would get home, usually around 8 o'clock to between 8 a.m., 10 a.m., and depending if I was in a fight camp or not. I would either, eat and go to take my nap and then wake up and continue doing some more stuff. If I was in fight camp, I'd come home from work. I would probably go for a run, do some cardio, come home, eat, take a nap, and then wake up and go train. And then around noonish or so, and then go again and train in the evening time. So I'd end up training like 2 or 3 times a day if you count the cardio sessions.
That's considerable. And then, are you the kind of fighter that plans specifically for a certain opponent? Do you study him, or do you just simply go and follow your own curriculum? Because that's really two schools of thought. On one side, you have guys who specifically train and plan for a specific opponent. Then on the other side, you have guys who are like, I just do my thing and I win.
A little bit in between. I would obviously, if I early on when you first start fighting, you're fighting against guys who you don't really know much about. If you're a debut fighter or had one or two or three fights, especially when I first started fighting, we're talking about 15, 13, 14, 15 years ago. There
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of video about people to study. So early on, I would just go fight. You just go. You had like it was so crazy back then that the promoter would be like, oh yeah, we got you matched up with John Smith, and then you go to the event, you go to weigh-ins, and John Smith is not there to weigh in, and
Yeah.
and he doesn't show up. The promoter's like, oh, I don't know, he's not here, but we got this guy over here who's got a similar record and he's a similar weight. You want to fight him? And we were there to fight, so we're like, okay, let's do it. So we would end up getting opponent switches the day of the fight, day of the weigh-ins. This is like was normal stuff for us
Yeah.
going up. So I got accustomed to just going to fight and not really caring who I was fighting or what was going on. We just wanted to fight and get the experience. But then as I got to be a professional, you get a little bit more careful about the fights that you take on. And this was the internet's catching up and there's video about people. You can just go Google search them and you'll find find video about them fighting, and then so now you can study your opponent. And so I would look at their fights, and I would always see where's my advantages, where are my disadvantages. But at the same time, I would just kind of focus on what I wanted to do and just kind of a little be cautious about what they were very good at, or where they could expose maybe my weakness, you know.
Mm.
And then but I was always kind of went in with a loose game plan, with a really loose game plan, because I'd have to feel it once the bell rings. It's a lot of things change, and then I was kind of always had to feel the flow, where the fight was going to go. So sometimes I would totally abandon my game plan and just go what I had the feeling, like what I felt when the bell rang.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So, and I remember some of those days too. I remember a coach that I worked a lot with, and he he was like, "Hey, always bring your fight gear because we never know when somebody's going to need another fighter there."
Yeah, yeah. It was crazy back then. Like you can't really do stuff like that now when everything's sanctioned. Because now like a lot of promotions, and if you go to a state where it's highly regulated, they won't even let you make a last minute change. Like there's got to be, you have to change. The last changes are like almost a whole week out, you know. So if you don't have the fight within that week, then you're not going to fight. So it's very different.
It was very much the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
I remember showing up to one fight, and they had us getting ready in the back in the quote unquote dressing room
Yeah.
on broken glass.
Really? On broken glass? I've never had to experience that.
I was like, I will never forget this.
We one of the craziest ones we've done is we were at like it was a nightclub or a bar we were fighting at. They put a ring in the center of it, and there is no warm up rooms or dressing rooms. We're warming up in front of the bathroom before we're going out there and fighting in front of the crowds walking by. You're sitting there just in the crowd in front of the bathroom,
Yep.
warming up, getting ready to fight.
Yeah. I've had to fight at both bars and nightclubs. And that is the story.
Yeah.
So, how important do you see cross training for your program? It sounds like you're doing a lot of it. And what parts of cross training to you are the most important?
So when you talk about cross training, it could be different things, you know. So some people cross training means I'm going to train at a different gym that's close, maybe in a different area, or cross training could be I'm just cross training a different sport or a different martial art.
Oh yeah.
So do you want to be more specific on what you mean by that?
Oh, definitely. Okay, so cross training. When I say that, I'm more or less referencing different athletic prospects. So, for example, I know some fighters that will do nothing but run and hit pads, and then I know other fighters that will do a combination of like rock climbing and jujitsu, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So what parts of that do you do with your program?
Well, I was trained as a mixed martial artist, so even when I was fighting just Muay Thai or kickboxing fights, I was still wanted to get better at jiu-jitsu. I wanted to get better at wrestling. I wanted to get better at judo. So I would always employ cross training in that sense, but that was just because I was still sharpening my skills for what I eventually planned on doing, was fighting in MMA. And then once I started fighting MMA, sometimes I would fight MMA, sometimes I would fight kickboxing, sometimes I would do Muay Thai, sometimes I would do a grappling tournament. So like my training has always just been very consistent with just multiple disciplines of combat sports. And then I always running. It's always drilled in me. You got to run. You got to run. If you're going to fight, you got to run. If you're going to fight, you got to run. Ajarn Chai, he's always drilled that into all of his students. So Crew Mark
Yep.
drilled that heavily into us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's again, great coach. I love Mark. He's a really good, solid guy. Yeah, Ajahn Chai, if there's two things I always take away from every camp with him, it's make sure you jog, make sure your knees on bag.
Yeah.
On your personal Muay Thai style, do you see yourself more as like a Muay Mat style fighter or more like a Muay Thai fighter? What is your personal brand as far as your fighting style goes?
My personal style is odd because I'm relatively a shorter fighter for my weight. But I always like to kind of stay in kicking range and throw kicks. Love low kicks. Low kicks are some of my favorite strikes. So I was always a big kicker. Not much of a, like I can throw some hands, but I wasn't much of a puncher or very much a lot of elbows. I like the farther distance. But now that I'm getting a little bit older, and I'm really enjoying the clinching, the knees to clinch, the elbows, and just the training. My fighting days are done. I'm retired now, but when I'm training, I love to do the clinch sparring when I'm training.
Yeah, that's clinch sparring is one of my favorites. You're doing it this morning, actually.
Yeah, yeah, same with us.
So now you're moving further in your career. So you're currently working on. I know you're coaching, right? So
Yes,
and your gym is out of, I think you said Buffalo, right?
yes, we're in Buffalo, New York. We our biggest student base is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but we have a solid Muay Thai program, and then we have a handful of guys that like to do MMA.
Fantastic. That's good. So how is that? How hard was that transition going from fighter to coach?
Um, it was. It was a transition because I was doing everything at the same time. So once we were I got put in a situation where, um, like we were told that my instructor was like, hey, we might not be the academy might not be around for long, so I was like, all right, well, I wanted to open up a gym anyways. Like once I started teaching, I was teaching beginners classes and kids classes, and I felt like this is something I can do. I can do this. This is, I was drawn to it once I started doing that, and I was like, I want to open up a gym one day. And then so I was put in a situation where I opened up sooner than I kind of wanted to.
Okay.
I was just a purple belt. I was still fighting amateur at the time. And so there was talk about the gym closing that we were training at. So one of my training partners knew that this is something that was one of my goals. And it was something he wanted to do as well. So he said, hey, do you want to do this together? So Josh Ketchery and myself, we opened up Buffalo United Martial Arts. And because he thought his perception or his view is that training jujitsu is really what taught him how to learn things like learning jujitsu. The way he learns jujitsu, he was able to use the learning jujitsu, and that's how he learned everything. So he's learned so much after he started learning jujitsu because he took the methods of learning jujitsu and he applied that to just learning anything. And he credits that to basically where he's at today and what he's doing now. So we opened up the gym together, and I was just a purple belt at the time. My one of We had like similar things that we wanted out of the gym. I wanted to be inside the city limits of Buffalo, and he wanted to be downtown because he was working at Pearl Street Brewery and Grill, which is in downtown Buffalo. And he started a work program for his employees. He believes in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu so much that he wanted his employees to have a free Brazilian Jiu Jitsu program. So he started teaching his employees Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and he was like, "I want the gym to be close to my job, so the employees can come to the gym and train there." So I was like, "Well, that meets what I would like out of our gym as well. So let's do it." And that was our start of our process. And so I started teaching at that point. I didn't have any fighters, so I was just teaching, classes and then fighting.
Awesome. What has been the most difficult part of running a gym? I know that every gym owner has some horror stories, but what has been the most difficult parts for you?
It's I don't know. There hasn't been a ton of challenges per se. Nothing that hasn't been able to just for us to overcome. Um, Some of the biggest challenges is like, you invested a lot in your students. So when they leave, that's hard. Sometimes it's really tough. They leave for different reasons. Sometimes they leave because they're moving to a different state. Sometimes they leave because they just don't have the interest in training no more. Sometimes they leave because of they see a different school and they think, the grass is greener on the other side and they want to try a different school out, which is fine. And sometimes they leave because there's uh, things that can happen inside of us, in the school, unfortunately, like relationships, especially if a man and a woman start dating and then all of a sudden they split up and then they, one doesn't want to train at the gym anymore. So they go find a different gym to train at.
Yeah.
So some of that, just students leaving for various reasons, is really challenging for me because when I run the academy, it's not just running an academy. You build these relationships with people, and I'm a relational person. So like I take this. It's not just about money for me.
Yeah.
So when I run the school, like I care for these people and I want to see them do well. So it's when they leave, it's like someone's leaving out of your life. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the best way to look at it too, because you really are, you're not just running the gym, you're a coach, And sometimes you play the role of a life coach.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people
yeah, for
come to you,
sure.
yeah, people come to you with problems, and sometimes you just have to be the ear for them. That can be the hard part. I was a couple of years ago on my birthday, I got a message on Facebook, and she I'll leave her nameless. My old student, she messaged, she said, "Hey, I had to let you know I met my husband in your class." And I was like, "Oh, that is so cool. I'm so happy for you." She's like, "Yeah, we've been married a couple of years, and I had to message you because we're about to have our first child on your birthday."
Oh, that's awesome.
So, sometimes those cool things happen, and it works
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Like we get stories and people talk to us all the time, like we've had, especially, this one woman in particular, she pulled me aside one day. She was just like, I just need to let you know. And, she felt real awkward, like sharing with the information at first. She was like, like just training here has given me the confidence. Like she was in an abusive relationship
Okay.
and just training in martial arts and being a part of the academy gave her the confidence to leave that abusive relationship. And she just, she was like, in tears, crying, being so thankful for, uh, what we were just doing what we love to do.
Right.
And it impacted her life so tremendously. And that's the stuff that makes us feel good.
That's why we do what we do. So, and now you've taken on a new role, and that is with this new promotion.
Yeah, so it started promoting fights about 2.5 years ago. Came up with a brand called K4 Fighting. A lot of people will ask me what's K4 because it's very similar to what K1 rules, and they're like, oh, it's K1. Is it like K1? What's K4? But it's really just a play on my name. My name's Keith Forant, so it's K4. And just that's how I came up with it. Came with a logo, came up with the name, and just started promoting the fights. There was like a hole in Buffalo. There wasn't any show, there wasn't a lot of MMA or Muay Thai or any kickboxing shows going on in Buffalo. So there was at one point, and then it they just stopped. So I was like, people, as I said, I always said it's something I wanted to do, and people were come up to me and say, "Hey, you should do this. We should do this." Our gym's right inside of a place called Buffalo Riverworks, and
Okay.
they're an entertainment venue, so they have like ice rinks, they have a stage, they do concerts, they have a restaurant, bar, and they asked me, they're like, "Hey, we want to put on fights here. Do you want, would you do it? Like we heard you have interest in doing it." And then I was nervous. I was like really scared to do it at first because it was something new. It was something big. I've fought and I've been involved in the fight game on every aspect of fighting except for running the whole show.
Right.
So, and, like I had a modest amount of money. I didn't have a deep pocket. So I was really scared about taking the financial risk as well. So,
Yeah.
But we did it. I did it, and I had a lot of help and support. And the show was just phenomenal. It was a blast. It was a huge success. And so we just kept on pounding them out, pounding them out. We're at, I just did my 10th, we just did our 10th event. Let's see, it was back in March. And then we're on to our 11th event now. And we're actually going to, this is our first venture outside of Buffalo. And we're going over to Utica and doing a show at Utica University Nexus Center on May 18th.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's got to have its own set of problems and conundrums, right? So what's been the most interesting journey going into the field of promotions?
I don't know what the most interesting thing is. It's definitely full of some issues. Some shows go pretty smoothly, and then some have a lot of issues that come up and are very stressful to do. Especially when, like I care about everything. I have passion, and I'm not, again, it's not all about just let's make a buck for me. I want to create a brand. I want to give the fighters stuff that I didn't have when I was fighting. Like we run a very good show. It's well put together. It's got a really good professional feel. And for the most, it's mostly amateurs. We do professional Muay Thai, professional kickboxing, amateur Muay Thai, amateur kickboxing, and amateur MMA. And
Mm,
so it's mostly built run by amateur fighters, but they go on to a show feeling like they're fighting at a professional show event. This is very different from like the events that I started fighting on. Like they nowadays they call like expedition fights, they call them smokers, right?
yeah.
But there's a reason why they call them smokers. And like that was the norm. There wasn't any like good big professional shows outside of like the big shows, like the smaller shows were just like smoke filled rooms. Guys would go in there and fight and then come out and smoke their cigarettes and smoke whatever. It
Right.
was it was it was like you said, the wild wild west. So I want
Yeah.
to put on a good, well put together show for everybody. And that could lead to a lot of stress when things don't go exactly right.
Yeah. I can imagine. All right. So where is this next show at? Because you're now enticing everybody. Everybody's going to want to know about this next show. So tell us about it.
The next show is in May 18th in Utica, New York. It's at the Utica University Nexus Center. It's a beautiful venue. They just built this venue about a year and a half ago, so everything's brand new. It's run, it's through the Utica University, the school, and so it's a small arena. It's adjacent to their bigger arena. So we'll be in like a small arena that'll hold about 2,000 people. And it's beautiful. Everything's brand new. The locker rooms are brand new.
Awesome.
Everything's going to look real good. They have big TV screens on there, so everybody's going to be able to see that. We'll have everything broadcasted on the TVs. We have a pay-per-view of the event at k4fighting.tv.
Okay.
We have a good production crew that comes and does live replays, produce a show. Real nice event. I'm really excited for this venue. Again, it's our first time going outside of Buffalo Riverworks, and I just went and visited the venue again just last week, and it got me so motivated and so pumped to go there. Like we plan on doing probably about maybe 3 to 4 shows there out of a year.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. So tell us, where can people find you online?
We have Instagram, K4 Fighting, and then our Facebook page. That's most of our online presence is Instagram and Facebook. And then we have our own broadcasting website as well, k4fighting.tv.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. I want to thank you so much for this time. Loved hearing your story. I loved hearing your journey, and I love hearing how it's progressing. And yeah, so just thank you for your time. and I'll see you soon.
Okay,
So
awesome. I'll see you.